And there it goes. It's going well. So we are recording Mayank. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning into Sustainiacs. I am Michael Vincent. I'm always the Sustainiac. My new guest, Mayank Chuhan. He is also a Sustainiac all the time, but it's his first time on the show. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Thanks, Michael. I'm fine. How have you been doing?
I've been doing pretty good. I got to tell you, getting up early to have you on the show. I'm not that much of an early person as I used to be, my friend. I'm just not. You know what I mean? As time goes on, the mornings get earlier and like the ground gets further away. You know what I'm saying? Like it's harder and harder to get up to
Absolutely.
me.
See, but for
Those
the
are the two
climate's
things
sake,
I've
we should
noticed.
always get early up, man.
You really should keep that habit going,
Yeah.
right? Because once you lose it, it's gone, my friend.
Yeah.
So you are, if you didn't know, you have a thing and you run a thing called the Sustainability Cloud, right? And so we're here to talk about that, my friend. What is Sustainability Cloud? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, so Michael, Sustainability Cloud is a software platform enabling enterprises to be in control of the climate action. But before I kind of dive into it, mm, let me kind of give you the big picture around what Sustainability Cloud all is about and how it came into being. So,
Fantastic.
climate is a topic I think which has been in the cards for a long time now, and I'll put it like simply like this: as the war against this climate change is intensifying. So what that is translating is that enterprises, regulators, governments, nations, they are basically trying to push for decarbonization and boardrooms are worried about that how exactly their enterprise will decarbonize or meet their net zero goals. So that's like one of the challenges that they're facing now. Like it's I would say that achieving net zero, achieving decarbonization is much easier said than done. Correct. So it's like
Yeah, for sure.
it makes very easy. Putting up a public statement out there is very easy, but the major challenge which comes up for any boardroom guy, any CXO, is that how do you imbibe sustainability? How do you imbibe these climate practices into the daily operational practices of the business? And there is where, if you look at the key aspect that you need to have a mechanism where this sustainability gets embedded into the daily operational practice of the company. And what we have done is we have created a software platform that can basically combine all your sustainability data, create into a central repository, start slicing and dicing this in terms of creating value for your enterprise, for the various stakeholders, the regulators, the government, your customers, and puts you in control of your sustainability, just like a financial platform would enable you to be on the top of
Oh,
your
wow.
financial needs. So
That is fantastic. That really is fantastic because I always contend that it doesn't have to be a money or intelligence drain on a company, right? Because that's like the first thing that a corporation looks at. It's like, okay, it's not our core competency. This is not what we do at core,
absolutely.
and therefore, there's different reactions. There's one, we're not going to do it because it costs money. Two, we're not going to do it because we don't have to, right? And until they have to, then they'll start to get involved, right? But here in the United States, public pressure is becoming more and more, and you know how it goes here. I mean, you're familiar with the market here, right? It we read about it internationally. Then California imposes a law, and
Yeah,
then the East Coast of the U.S. imposes a law, and then the middle starts to catch up, right? Well,
yeah.
and that's how it goes. And we're a very litigious society here. So the first things that you're seeing right now are people, massive international corporations, U.S. based, are being sued for not recycling or to having claims and they're not real and that type of stuff. So, something like this is really needed in those boardrooms from both a compliance and a financial state, right?
No, absolutely, Michael. And if again, since you brought up the topic around the way this space is evolving, and if we look at the journey, I think especially over the last 2 to 2.5 decades, when this topic has started gaining significant importance in various part of the world, including US, Europe, Southeast Asia, a lot of supply chain happening out there. So if you see that with every passing year, a new like kind of a resolution comes into place, whether we look at Paris Accord, whether we look at the COP series, wherein let me put it like this, that the global regulators out there, so as long as the half the population among the globe believes that climate change is an issue, it's really not a point of debate, whether here or there, whether it is an issue or not. We have to acknowledge that this is an issue. So what we have seen is that this evolving regulation has not only kind of post-pandemic era has come to the forefront, but they have created a scenario wherein like especially the businesses out there need to make themselves ready for this evolving space. And whether we like it or do not like it, whether it is one administration or the other, actions are bound to be taken in that particular direction. And the best thing that the enterprises and the organizations can do is to be fully ready for these evolving regulations. Now, how does that like translate practically? See, if you look at any standard enterprise, Michael, one of the key challenges for them is that sustainability per se is a pretty large topic. Traditionally, it has been more about something which has been served by the consulting like services. But if you look at the sustainability data, is a pretty complex. I would not. It's pretty vast data. So you have your energy footprints, your environmental footprints, water footprints, waste footprints, plastic footprints, your
Oh my
carbon
gosh, yeah.
footprints. So this
And you know, a lot of those intersect, right? So your plastic footprint, like the EPR legislation, et cetera, is meant to impact your carbon footprint and your water footprint and everything else too, right?
Exactly. So if you look at this intermesh that is getting created, and rightly so, so the pace of the evolution is something which has to be very clearly built up into the daily practices of the business, as I mentioned earlier. And
Yeah.
that is one area, and that is one problem set across the boardrooms that we chose to address through the sustainability cloud by incorporating a lot of compliances, or a lot of global compliances, I would say. So what we have done is we have digitized these compliances, and we keep on adding to it. And I always like to draw a parallel to the financial world. So if you look at the financial world, the best aspect is you have all your financial data centrally available, and then you have your international accounting principles, your gap principles. You basically apply all your standard principles in terms of our accounting. Likewise, you do in sustainability. But that said, sustainability is simply is wider and complex. That's the only change. Otherwise, it behaves in a similar fashion like the financial world. So you have to
So,
start.
so hold on a second. Let me just interject this real quick. Excuse me, sure. So what you're saying is that the platform that you've built takes into account the current state of international regulations on carbon footprint, et cetera, that type of thing, and then it updates as you go. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Is it an intelligence type of platform where it houses it like it's a repository, or does it actually change its functionality based on those regulations as well?
Michael, actually, it's a bit of both. So when I say one, just like any financial platform will quickly imbibe any change in tax regulations as they evolve over any specific geography,
Nice.
and incorporate that as a part of the platform. So we do the same. So that's like one bit of it. Second, so for example, we have like especially our business activities in the Southeast Asian region in India. We have integrated with a lot of environmental regulators and climate regulators in this area, so that those regulations can be made easily available to the businesses at hand, rather than making it confusing. We declutter it and we make it very simple for the businesses out there. So that's like one piece of it. And then the second aspect is that like within the gamut, within this basket of regulations, you need not worry about which one will apply to you, because that itself is also a confusing part. Correct?
Oh yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, that's the hard part. Well, I don't need to worry about that because I'm just this. Yeah, I just do this or I just do that.
Absolutely. So you need to say that out of these 100, these are the 40 which applies to me, and the sustainability cloud will basically work out its magic in terms of based on where you are, which geography you are, which sector you are. It will basically see which regulations apply to you and enable you to be on the top of these climate disclosures and regulations.
That is fantastic stuff, Mayank. Is can it, let me ask you this real quick as we're going through this. So, can I? How do I say this? Is it modular in nature or scalable in the fact that okay, can I look at this or talk to a consultant or who or however you set this up while I'm setting this up? Can I dumb it down to my or will it dumb down to my particular situation or expand to my particular situation? Because there are those where certain things do or don't, right? Like, is
Absolutely.
this useful for somebody who's not shipping international, right? But
Absolutely.
intends to do so in the future? Will this set them up to be able to make that transition sooner? And is it useful even if they don't, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. And see, that's the beauty of it. See, if you look at again the sustainability space, I mentioned that it is pretty vast. There's a lot of data, different types. There is a lot of regulations, different types, different geographies, different requirements. There are a lot of sectors, varying regulations across these sectors. So, which means the variability index is high. Now,
Yeah.
that's what gets like businesses confused, and there that is where the value has been strongly created by us. So not only does the platform, so what it simply does is, one, it first collects, so there are some common elements. So what it does is it collects all the sustainability data into a single sustainability repository, so it becomes like a data lake for you. So just like you have your financial data lake within your enterprise, you start having your sustainability data lake, which is a very very like clear way of understanding where you are. Now once you have that data lake, then again we start slicing and dicing this data in terms of applying the various accounting. So your carbon accounting, your water accounting, your energy accounting, your waste accounting. So as a business leader, you will start understanding that my organization is at this point, right, at this point in time. So that becomes very simplistic for you as a business leader. And while doing that slicing and dicing, as I mentioned earlier, it takes into account which sector you are from, which what kind of for example geography you are coming from, which regulations may apply to you, so that the readiness part starts coming into the play. Then the the third piece, Michael, which is very important out there, is that again then it starts creating very clear value buckets for all the stakeholders out there. Now if you look at the key stakeholders, so one is there has to be a lot of capacity building, knowledge building within the enterprise itself, given that that has not been a part of the enterprises for in a day-to-day basis. So like internal enterprise wide reporting, that is one way the value gets unlocked. So that's like one. Second is, as I mentioned earlier, we have integrated with the various regulatory platforms in various geographies. So, which means that any compliance aspects that you need to take because of your local regulations or federal regulations. For example, there is a SECUR framework, as you mentioned, from California, or there is a EU framework, CSRD, or there, for example, in India, there is a BRSR framework which is required for sustainability reporting. So, we have gone ahead and actually integrated with these regulators. So, which means that from a regulatory disclosure perspective, you're all set. Okay. Third,
Right. So
we have
you don't need to have the bandwidth for people to be searching for and ingesting all these regulations. This is doing that. This is your pipeline to what is
absolutely,
going on. Right.
absolutely,
Does
absolutely.
it also no? So you've got this data lake, and you're saying it's showing you these buckets of these value buckets for your different stakeholders, right? And that is fantastic. Does it does it does it so if it's showing you the positive, let's just throw yin and yang at it, right? If it's showing you the positive, is it showing you the negative where you need to step up here? Here's a red flag, here's a warning. Does it show you those type of things within your
Yeah,
organization as well?
yeah, Michael. See, I'll put it like this. Now, as the enterprises and the businesses globally get ready for their climate goals and their climate ambitions, the first part of the problem that we have seen is first getting on the top of it and understand like where your organization is right now. So that is the first key to actually move and achieve your goals. So once
Right.
that,
Sure.
so that is the first step which is sustainability
It's
cloud
going
does
to get
for
you
you.
it's going to get you your baseline. Here you are, right?
Absolutely.
Here's your baseline. Yeah. Okay.
Correct. So we get that, we enable to carve out that baseline for that particular enterprise in a very customized fashion. Now that baseline, once you have that baseline, then you start slicing and dicing this data in terms of applying algorithms, in terms of applying what if scenarios to translate into, you can say, possible net zero pathways or possible decarbonization pathways for that particular customer. And here is where, for example, your basically your analytics engine kicks in, or your insights AI ML driven engine kicks in, wherein it translates this data to actionable insights for the boardrooms. And it could be in a very simple mechanism. For example, if you are the CXO of a company, you will simply need to know what is your carbon score for a given, for your organization or a given facility. Now that simple one digit score may help you understand that how you are actually moving towards the goal that you set for your facility in terms of where you need to be year on year in terms of climate goals. So that is how the sustainability cloud translates this the data first from general, you can say, reporting and value buckets into actually achieving the climate goals, achieving your sustainability scores, achieving your you can say carbon scores, water scores, and knowing how your organization is moving year by year towards your decarbonization targets.
Does it? Okay. So you're looking at your internal goals, and thank you for that explanation. That is fantastic. Do I get to benchmark against a similar cohort of other companies as well through this?
Correct. So Michael, you're right. So that one is the internal aspect, and then there is like sector specific benchmarking. So obviously you are right. As a company, you would like to understand what your peers are doing, what your competitors are doing, and
Right.
there is where what we have done is we have integrated. Not only we do an internal benchmarking with the set of customers which are active in terms of those like sectors on an anonymous basis, but we also have integrated you can say the values, the data sets across the various sectors, which can enable you to know where you stand in conjunction, in comparison with your peers. And that is how you can actually translate whether your speed or your plans for moving towards your climate goals is actually meeting up with your competition or meeting with the peers or not. Yeah, so definitely we do
Got you.
that.
So that begs the question too: is does it now, or is the future that I can take this and have some sort of auditable score, for either use in gaining business or use in defending my business in the case of a litigious action or something like that. Is that in it? Is that the goal? Because like in transportation, et cetera, in the United States, if you want to win a bid to haul a certain company's freight with your trucks,
Yeah,
you have to have carbon scores of a certain nature, right?
correct. Correct.
So is this also the goal here? Compliance is one thing, that's fantastic, but I
Right.
also have to prove it to potential customers and partners as well, right? Does
Mm,
it have?
absolutely. No. So, see, Michael, I think you touched a very valid point. So, the among all the stakeholders, it is not just your regulators, just one part of the stakeholders, your customers, and especially if you're a part of a global supply chain, you need to ready yourself in terms of the various goals that your end customers are also targeting in terms of the
Yeah, sure.
decarbonization.
You're somebody's scope 3, right?
Absolutely. You're somebody's scope three. So when you are doing S1, S2, S3, scope one, scope two, scope three, you need to look at it both upstream and downstream. And what we do is that we translate, as I was mentioning earlier, we translate this data, we do a complete gap analysis. So let me give you one example. So most of the customers which have moved towards actually targeting their climate goals typically tend to follow the science-based target initiatives, SBTI, which is like a very structured mechanism of how you want to move in a defined time frame to your net zero ambitions or your decarbonization ambitions. Now what the platform has done is it has actually kind of digitized that SBTI framework, so that as a company you know where you are right now. It does a clear cut gap analysis, then it does a tracking of where you need to be in terms of your goals, and you can easily share this information with your stakeholders including your customers. So that's like one piece of it. Second is we do something like what is known as a product carbon footprints and product water footprints. So, for example, if you're an apparel guy and you're manufacturing, let us say, jeans or a pair of trousers, and you need to
Mhm.
know on the tag that what is the carbon footprint for this particular apparel or what is the water footprint for this particular apparel. So, the platform enables you to actually mature your organization in that particular direction and share that information as a part of your supply chains as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, okay, as we're going through all this, it sounds I in my mind, legacy, enterprise, Unilever's, BlackRock's, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, these massive international companies, Avery Dennison, all these, 3M, all these people. Is that what this platform is exclusively for? Or are we talking about small business enterprises here as well?
So see, Michael. So before I answer that question,
Okay.
one thing is very important, and which we all have to understand, that when it comes to climate change, everybody is a contributor. Correct? Because
100%, 100%. And I also contend that even if you can't be perfect in your contribution, if it makes a little bit of an impact, do it because it all adds up. So
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. So while I would go to the extent of saying, while like the big wigs that you name, they're definitely. I think they have been in action for a while. They have been taking
sure.
steps in this particular direction,
Well,
and a
they've got
platform.
they've got the bandwidth, right? They've got the intelligence and bandwidth within their
Absolutely.
halls to be able to hit it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the intelligence, the bandwidth, the resources to get that done. So what the sustainability cloud does is it has been designed as a very strong enterprise class platform, so it can fit neatly into their enterprise systems, enable them
Hmm.
for the new age regulations. For example, scope 3 digitization is something which is very new on the cards. There are very few platforms which have started offering that, and it can clearly fill up the gaps for these large enterprise accounts and the Godzillas out there. Uh, while at the same time, if you look at the mid cap sector or you look at the small and medium businesses sector, there is where there is a lot of lack of understanding or a lack of a clear roadmap in terms of how they do need to take it forward. And a
Right.
platform like Sustainability Cloud can enable them to actually put a very clear structure to their plans and move step by step out there. So I'll say that in our experience across the more than 1,000 customers that we have been working with, we have seen that the sustainability cloud gives a lot of value to the mid cap and the small and medium business segments, because
Nice.
they have been lacking the digital infrastructure or the IT infrastructure which can enable them to make their climate action or make their sustainability in a much more data driven fashion. So there is where it's created the largest value. When we have
Yeah.
seen on the enterprise side, largely we have seen that they are pretty much very very comfortable and has adopted our scope 3 digitization, which we have done, and we are one of the first companies to do that, globally, including some of the regulations like the CBAM, the European Union Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, and CSRD. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fantastic because Mayank, that is where the big value comes into play in many tech and SaaS products, right? Is enabling the mid cap and the smaller business enterprises to play with the big boys, so to speak,
Correct.
right? Giving them here's your SaaS platform that is going to give you the bandwidth to be able to compete with these people who have, you know, buildings full of data scientists that you can't
Correct.
afford,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And research people who are ingesting the new regulations, et cetera. This is helping you to compete. That's fantastic. Let me ask you this: is there a group? And this is a little bit off the. It involves the business that you're in and what you're hitting, and I kind of want to bring this to light because there are certain regulations, at least within the United States, and I hazard to say that across international borders, it works this way as well. Is that when you're looking at sustainability and climate change, we're looking at climate change, right?
Yeah.
There's this feeling that the smaller people will be left out of these regulations because they're not the low hanging fruit. The low hanging fruit is the major international players and manufacturers. If you can fix them 10%, that's better than 1,000 small businesses, right? And so they tend to think that maybe these regulations will only hit, or they'll be gauged or tiered by class, right? In other words, if you're a blue chip legacy enterprise,
Yeah.
you're 100% liable. But then these mid caps, maybe not so much, and then the smaller players, you can do it, and we won't worry about you because you're not that big of you're not that big of a player. You don't really impact it that much. Is that reality, or are people like wishing for something that's not going to
Michael,
be?
I'll say that that's very intertwined. See, look at the world that we are living in today. It is a world of a global supply chain. So when you even talk about
Yes.
the blue chip guys and the top corporations out there, so they don't end up doing everything by them. So a large chunk of that is basically outsourced or built up by like a mid cap company or a small and medium company in some part or different part of the globe. Now, which means
Okay.
that if and there is this entire concept of scope 3, which basically like put a completely different perspective and meaning to carbon emissions. See, like scope 1 and 2 had been there for, I would say, multiple decades now, but the entire spectrum has changed with the scope 3 coming on the cards. And why? Because when you see, if you, for example, let me take, if you are looking about, let us say, Apple, they do a lot of manufacturing in China, or they've recently started manufacturing in India as well. So which
Yeah.
means
Right.
that if Apple has to go net zero, it need to make sure that its manufacturing facilities in different parts of the world will are net zero, because otherwise it's like simply outsourcing your climate footprint to a different part.
Right, and those vendors aren't necessarily blue chip. They just add up to the blue chip player. I get it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
why. So the thought process that we can be left out of it is not right. I can say that yes, there will be an incremental mechanism through which the regulations will start getting applied to each of the sectors. So, for example, if a security exchange board has to apply this regulation, they may first start with the blue chip companies, but maybe after a couple of years, maybe 1 or 2 years, they'll extend it to, for example, the mid cap companies, and then they'll say, okay, I'll do it for
yeah,
next 2,000 companies, and so on. But you cannot be left out, because otherwise the equation will get distorted.
yeah. Right. Yeah, it's exactly right. Yeah, you're included as soon as the legacies get in there. If you're doing any business with them, you're already in it. You're already in it through demand through them, because they're. Yeah, I get that. That's fantastic. So let me ask you this: when excuse me,
Yeah.
how do you see this? Really evolving, right? The sustainability and compliance evolving into the future, right? You've got this um, major player, obviously, in the international economics, the United States, that's behind everybody else, right? Does that impact it? Where do you see the evolution of the compliance going into the future?
So again, Michael, that's a very interesting question, and I think if you want to speak on it, we can speak ages. But
Well,
yes,
let's just put it out there honestly, right? Okay, so
right.
there's a significant portion of the population in the United States that believes that the United States funds a lot of developing nations through like the Paris Accord and through different international organizations for climate change, and the money is not really being used to clean up those climates. It's just funding their development and industrial development. Okay, I mean that's a lot of the sentiment. There's a large portion of the population who feels that like we're banking the manufacturing development is not really impacting climate change, right? And our companies here we're limiting ourselves while everybody else is just going crazy with their money and not really changing. But how do you see that? Is there any truth to that anywhere in the world, or what's your
So
vision? What's
again,
your
so Michael, I'll answer to that, or rather, I'll respond to that in two parts. So one, see, if you look at, you said that how this entire thing is to see, how do I see it evolving in general as a space, sustainability, these regulations. So
Yeah,
one, I think obviously there has been two sides of the debate: climate change, strong people. There are like people looking into it, and then there has been a contrarian view as well. But that said, Again, see, if you look at the global spectrum, clearly at this point in time, the EU, the European Union, is a clear leader when it comes to sustainability and climate change, because
Yeah,
they
sure.
have been taking a lot of steps, not just now, but for long. If you see their
It's built into their culture. You know, when I speak to people and interview
absolutely.
people from there, it is from their parents and their grandparents. I mean, it's generational. They've always had a more sustainable outlook, right? I mean,
Absolutely. And Michael, see, that can also be at, if you look at it, that can or rather has to be attributed to the fact that area is very very sensitive to the impact of the climate change. Now if you look at it, it can actually impact them very severely. They understand that, and that you can see from the perspective of the way that how their regulations have been ahead of the entire global regulations in every sphere. So that's very very clear
yeah,
out there. Now,
absolutely.
so that's one. Again, like I say, the US has been having a, I think, a mixed response out there. So some part positive, some part debatable. But I believe that US has also seen some action in terms of its large corporations which have committed, which have individually and publicly committed to net zero. They have in fact walked the
Oh
talk
yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
gone out there. And I say that the impact of the US, the Western markets, the EU and the US markets, because they are very large size markets and the supply chain is largely in the Southeast Asian region, the China, India, Southeast Asia. So the climate impact is flowing out there. Now, this I'll tie down to the second comment that you make, that if there is a feeling among the US companies of whether or the people or the citizens, that whether the money that is going out is actually doing a change or not. So
Right.
I'll say, Michael, see, this is like I forgot the name, but when you spend on marketing $100, you never know which 50% worked and which did not. Correct?
That's
So
exactly right. Yeah, 100%.
absolutely. So
Touche. That's a perfect point.
correct.
It's a
So,
great
for
point.
example, so the point is, and I think it's not about whether you are solving the problem 100%. We are not there to solve the problem 100%. We have to make our set of contribution. So, even if we are able to move the needle by, I would say, 5%, 10%, 20%, 40% in an incremental fashion, we are actually addressing a part of the problem. And that is the mindset with which the business community, with which the global enterprise community needs to take this forward. Because I'll tell you, like, for example, the supply chain people, because of this pressure, have understood that they need to gear up very fast. Correct. Now, if that
Yeah.
pressure is taken off by the like let us say the from a customer perspective, then suddenly things will fizzle out. So that is something that we don't want as a global citizens. We really want that the businesses in all part of the globe do their bit of activity in terms of imbibing climate action as a part of their business activity, and that is how the entire chain has to continue. So these are my thoughts around how the businesses will have to continue to inbuild climate action into it, pushed by give the right push by the regulators, the investors, the customers, the millennia, the Gen Z, so that as a whole, we are creating those key drivers for the businesses to make sure that everything that coming out is good on the green scale.
Yeah. So, and thank you for that. That was a fantastic answer. But it leads me to this: the platform and the products that that you're offering and integrating into these companies. Does it also from the financial side, from the ledger side of things, does it also provide the CFOs of the world the information that shows how their efforts to improve their sustainability impacts based on what your system is showing them, how it impacts their bottom line and where those improvements are, et cetera, and to do it in a fiscally responsible manner as far as implying it? Does it give you those ROI and costing figures as well, or does it give you the information to be able to apply those accounting practices?
No, so I think, Michael, that's the key, because if I look. And in fact, why I say that's the key. See, businesses by definition is all about profitability and how do you create value for your shareholders. So essentially,
It is, but also at the same time, that if that's your only principle, it's one of the reasons we're in the mess we're in right now, right?
no, no.
Because yes, you have to consider your social and environmental impact. And if we had been
I'm
doing that all along, we may not be in the issue we're in. But that's another philosophical discussion.
absolutely. So I was when I say that statement, the complete statement is that you create business value for your shareholders in a very responsible fashion. Is by
Yeah, amen,
so
amen.
that's
Yes.
the idea that you have to look into. So I personally say that sustainability is profitable and it has to be looked by the CXOs and the CFOs in that manner, because unless you look at sustainability as a means to profitability, it will not get embedded into the bloodline of the businesses. And for example, I say there even in that space, you see there have been like both regulatory evolution, both for there are, for example, there are protocols like the PCAP frameworks which have been adopted by the financial institutions. There are climatic disclosures like the IFRS 1 S2 which have been adopted by from a financial standpoint view, which most of the investors would look into before they pump in their money into any of the enterprises out there. So essentially, you are right that the investors have gone into a mindset, I would say, and they need to continue to do that and keep pushing that that the businesses are evolving in a very responsible fashion. So profitability is not only just about the money profitability, but it could be a climate profitability as well. All has to be taken together in this entire index, and that is how you will be able to be a long-term sustainable business. Because otherwise, the definition of a sustainable business is merely a bookish definition. It is not a practical definition.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see international, like we talked about, some of the major blue chips, even in the United States, are pushing for this. Like Nestle recently announced $500 million investment into the small cocoa farmers, right, to
Right.
uplift their living situation, but it also increases the sustainability, the social impacts of their farming, et cetera, which is a great business practice because it invests in their supply chain, right? So
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah, so the sustainability effort is something that really you should be doing because it, in the true sense, like you said, it makes your business more sustainable. It's really business practice 101 when you break it down, right? I mean, it's just solid business practice.
Absolutely.
You're bringing that mechanism to be able to build out, like you said, very similar to a financial system, how to manage it and understand where you're at and how to move it.
Exactly. So creating that digital backbone for your climate action and sustainability out there, because that's area. See, if you look at it, enterprises have IT is like is something which is embedded deep into every enterprise, whether large or small. You have a digital backbone for everything in terms of ERPs. You have a digital backbone for finance. So you ought to have a digital backbone for your climate action and sustainability.
Awesome, awesome stuff. Maya, what is there? Do you what's the future at Sustainability Cloud? Right, it sounds like you got everything covered. Where you things evolving constantly, and there's never going to be, you're never going to put this on a shelf and go, okay, we don't need that anymore, because you know what it's supplying you is a constant evolution throughout all these international, and a lot of them can't even agree, right? I mean, we saw that at COP29 where, and all the previous iterations as well. There is progress, but there's also a lot of disagreement, and so there's going to be a fraction. There's you know, this fractioning of or fracturing of the different regulations, right? We're a long ways away from homogenous world global regulations.
Yeah.
We're still a couple steps away,
Correct.
right? So that's
Correct.
it. But are there new products within the sustainability cloud that are coming forth?
Sure. So Michael, you are right that since the space is very dynamic, it's very evolving. So the way we are looking at the sustainability cloud is that it keeps on the top of the biggest challenges which the boardrooms or which the businesses are facing right now, among the wider set of, so not only we keep on adopting the new regulations that come for a given geography, but we keep on giving tools as a part of our solution that can enable you to actually start taking corrective actions, start taking you can say course corrections in what how your businesses are doing. So that's one piece of it we are looking at it. And in terms of the vision, Michael, if I have to share with you, I'll again put it very
Please.
simply. See what the goal, and again I'll draw the parallel from the financial world. So the goal of the sustainability cloud is that every enterprise, every business which is using our platform essentially can draw up their sustainability balance sheet in a click of a button. They know very clearly where they stand right now, what are their assets, what are their liabilities, and how they need to take their business from here from a climatic standpoint. And that's what a sustainability cloud will can ease out and bring the real change, whether for a large enterprise or for a medium scale business. That's how I'll simply put it, like that.
That is that's tremendous. Is the setup of it a difficult situation? So you've got a let's say you got a small business, right? I mean, they need this because they don't have the bandwidth, right,
Yeah,
to do all this stuff.
absolutely, absolutely.
So employing this or ingesting this into their systems in their daily work, et cetera. How invasive, how painful is that for them to
No,
get
so
that done?
it's so we have made it, Michael, very very you can say very very adoptable. So one there's a lot of technical magic that has gone into it in terms of making sure that when you end up creating your sustainability repository, you are not struggling with any kind of technological challenges. It is very very simple for you to set up and get going. We have a we enable our customers through a very structured onboarding process. We do acknowledge that not everybody may be having a like a understanding of how to move ahead from there. So it's not just about selling a software tool, rather making sure that they understand how the value has to be like taken out of it. And
Yeah,
we do a continuous engagement with our customers. So it's more of a handshake rather than a selling, where we do a engagement in terms of the value delivery that is coming out of using the platform. So essentially making sure that when you use the sustainability cloud, you are not just like maintaining or reporting data because of the regulations, but you have started looking it at as real KPIs that your business ought to follow to become more competitive in the market, to become more lucrative as a part of the global supply chains, and to be compliant from a perspective of all the regulations.
awesome. That's a great answer. That's a great answer. Mike, this has been fantastic, my friend. I'm really glad that we did this. There's so much information that is out there, and we may have to do a follow up.
Absolutely. We can definitely do a follow up and dive deeper
Right?
into a subject, man. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is actually this has been fantastic. Where who Obviously everybody from small to large legacy players should be reaching out to you. Where are they going to learn more?
Sorry, I didn't get the last part, Michael.
Where should businesses and people who are listening reach out? Where should they go to learn more about your product and say, hey, we're interested in this. Let's talk some more. Who do they contact? Where do they go?
Sure. So Michael, we service our customers globally. So our website is the sustainabilitycloud.com or logicladder.com. I'll push the details for you on the chat message. And we basically service customers in multiple time zones. And as I'm sure that as customers reach out to us in terms of pushing their climate targets, we are all set out there as the climate warriors to make sure that we are by their side fighting this war with them.
Yeah, absolutely. No, hey, listen, I can attest to it. I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee. You are almost literally on the other side of the planet right now, and we're having multiple conversations, and it's been quite easy and quite smooth. So I'm
Yes.
not. Yeah, if there's any worry about that, don't worry about that. You get a hold of them. It's fantastic stuff, Mike. I really appreciate you coming on, my friend.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Michael. It was great speaking with you, and I'm sure that these sessions that you have been doing with the climate leaders, it's very important to build up that conviction that the time to act is now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And like we discussed, it's not whether you want to agree or disagree that there's climate change. You really can't argue the value
Absolutely.
of the outcome of this effort. You just can't. From your bottom line, your growth, your market share retention, and the sustainability of your own supply chain.
Yeah.
It's just sound business practice, and as stewards of the earth, it's what we should be doing. It's what we should be doing, regardless, right?
Absolutely, Michael. Absolutely.
Right on. Amen, brother. Hey, everybody, thank you for tuning in and downloading and the Sustainiacs. And till next time, peace and love.